One of the coolest features within Procreate is the ability to paint on pre-made 3D model surfaces. Procreate does not create the 3D models, but it allows you to import them. Let's get started. Create a new document. It doesn't matter what size. And once you do that, you go into your action menu, the wrench in the upper left-hand corner. Tap on that and then tap on the Help sub-menu. Then tap on What's New. From there, you can tap on the Model Pack button and you can download your models. Now be a little patient. It will take several minutes to download. Once all the models have downloaded, you can go back to your gallery and you will see all of your models in your gallery. Select one of the models to paint. Now, while we may cover everything about 3D and Procreate, I'm going to review all the basic, so you will have the confidence to play and explore. When you open a model, you are going to want to open the layers to see how the model was built. There may be one layer or multiple layers. If there's multiple layers, you are going to paint each one individually. You can just start painting by taking your brush and painting on the model. Or we can be a little bit more methodical and consider the end results. I'm going to use the methodical approach. We're going to cover a lot of 3D features quickly. 1. First, I am going to drag and drop color into the different layers. Let's select the can, and I'm going to drag my color into that layer. Next, let's select the lid. Select a color from our palette, and we're going to drag it right onto the lid. You can see that I can move the can around. I am moving it around with one finger, or I use two fingers. I can zoom in and out. Depending on where you stop, it's going to move around on the axis. So let's go back to coloring. We are going to now paint the tab. And again, I am going to just drag and drop that color. So that's the first thing to think about. Now, the great thing about dragging and dropping the color is that it is filling up the space of that layer completely versus if you were painting on it. Again, let's go to the lid. If you're painting on it, you have to manually cover it. And you can see it's kind of hard to get all the creases. So by dragging and dropping, we can cover the complete wire mesh. It's really what it's called. So second, what we're going to do is make a decision about the lighting and the environment. I want you to tap on the action menu, the wrench in the upper right-hand corner, and then tap on the 3D sub-navigation, and then tap on Edit Lighting and Environment. Now, this takes me into an environment space, and we're going to tap on Environment in the upper right-hand corner. And you can see all the pre-made environments the Procreate has provided us. So we can randomly just click through and see the difference and how the lighting is affecting that can. Other thing we might want to look at is the lighting. So these cubes that you're seeing is the light. Now again, I am moving this around with my fingers and zooming in is a double finger. I'm zooming in and out. Now we have 3 different lights right now. And if I move these lights around, you can see on my can the reflection that the light is picking up. Now, you can also tap on the light, and you can duplicate it. You can add saturation and intensity. Now, unfortunately, when I do this, I have to move my can so you can see what it's doing. I'm going to make that light a lot more intense. It's become a really hot light. If I make it less, the light gets turned down. Now I can also duplicate a light, and now we have 4 lights. I can also add a light from tapping on the navigation in the upper right-hand corner. So you can see, one thing that I find most useful is getting birds. I view right over top and then I can move my lights around. It's almost easier. It's almost like looking at it in 3D. 3. Let's move on to question. Do I want my surface to be flat or do I want it to be reflective? If we go into layers, we can see that each model has its own base layer, and we can see that by tapping on the arrow. Now, let's start with the can, and if I tap on that 3D icon, I can see that it has a color, a roughness, and a metallic feature. Now, There's several ways to manage this information that my favorite way of approaching adjusting roughness and metallic is by going up into the Adjustments menu in the upper right-hand corner, tapping on that and then tapping on a hue, saturation, and brightness. Now I am not going to touch the hue and saturation, but I am going to adjust the brightness. And if we use that slider, if we go to black on the brightness scale, the texture gets very flat. It's very, very smooth. And if we move it over to white, you can see that it's very subtle and very flat. You don't see any reflections, okay? So we're going to make this all the way to black so that it is very, very smooth. Now you can see that it's very smooth when I am moving it around and the light is reflecting it. The next thing we want to adjust is the metallic feature. Again, we are going to do it the exact same way. Go up into the Adjustments menu, tap on Hue, Saturation, and Brightness, and scroll over. Now this is just the opposite. If I move it to white, I get it very, very metallic. If I move it over to black, there's no metallic quality to it. So we're going to move that over and select that, go back in. And you can see how metallic that is now. You can see the reflections in the environment. Pretty cool. I want you to look at is when we are painting in a 3D view. As I mentioned, the first thing I like to do drag and drop color. But I also want to look at how the stroke works if you're going to paint on this surface. So let's take some paint and start to paint on the surface. Actually, let's change the color. And you can see what's happening is that I still have my metallic selected, so I want to go back out of here and just work on the base layer. Now, I'm going to go in there and paint. Now, you can see when I did that. Unfortunately, it only paints the area that I'm viewing. It doesn't want to wrap around. So the way to get around that is to go up into my Action menu, tap on Show 2D Texture, and now you can see how that is laying out in 2D. This is the can, and then the bottom of the can. So now what I can do is paint on the can, and I'm going to stay within that can area and paint around. And let's even add something fun for the bottom of the can. Now, when I go back up into the Action menu, tap on that wrench, go into the 3D sub-menu, and turn off the 2D texture. Now, you can see that it's painted all the way around where I painted it. And we even have a little special fun is happening there now. The other thing you can see, because I went in the 2D, it painted it on that directly on the metallic surface, and the color is metallic. 5. Now one more thing I want to very quickly look at is show you that just like when you're using Procreate Paint in 2D or a flat painting, you can add layers. Now I am adding a layer to the can. Now when I paint on that, it's flat. Okay, and that's because the paintbrush itself is flat. There is a couple of different things I can do. Or I can rotate the can, just so that we are not looking at that part of it. Also, I can go in and select my layer mode and just how it's going to react on that layer. Or let's go back to just making that normal. I can go up into that brush, tap on the brush, and if you go all the way to the bottom and select, you can actually adjust how that brush is going to react on 3D surfaces. And this only applies to 3D surfaces. So we are going to open up the metallic and make it. Let's make it 100%. So now if I tap on it, there is going to be a reflection. Now the next thing I want to do is make it sure so that there is no roughness, so that it's a very glossy brush. And again, it's picking up all that reflection. And if I clear the drawing pad, you can see the difference. If I turn it into flat, you don't see any reflection. So let's click done, and now let's paint with that brush. It's a very metallic quality, completely different. And you can do this with any brush. So that should give you the basics getting started with Procreate on 3D models. If you want to continue to explore and work with other models, you can find them online at Adobe Stock Images and other online sources. Don't be afraid to dive in and play.